of France, of UK, Yugoslavia. So about 7 countries they said. So that is known as Nuremberg's trial, and they tried not only doctors, but the trial of doctors was a part of them. So the doctors, those who were involved in those experiments, they were also tried, and about 21 doctors they were identified. Out of these, 7 were hanged to death, and about 14 people they had undergone this about life imprisonment or minimum 14 years of imprisonment. Then, in the same trial, a Nuremberg Code that was adopted, and on August 19, 1949, and Dr. Leo Alexander and Andrew Canway, IB drafted a 10-point memorandum that is the permissible medical experiment, and that is known as the Nuremberg Code. What are these? That was the voluntary consent of the human subject that is absolutely essential for this. This means that persons involved should have legal capacity to give consent, exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, dishonesty, pressure, overreaching, or other hidden forms of constraint or force. And the duty and responsibility, ascertaining quality of the consent rests upon each individual who initiate, direct, or engage in the experiment. So responsibility goes on the person who is doing the experiment. Then the second point was that it should be such as to yield fruitful results from the good of society, for the good of society, unprocurable by other methods or means of study, and not random and unnecessary in nature. The experiment should be so designed and based on the results of animal experimentation and the knowledge of the nature, history of disease, or other problems under study that the anticipated results will justify the performance of the experiment. The experiment should be so conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering and injury, and no experiment should be conducted where there is a priori reason to believe that death or disabling injury will occur, except perhaps in those experiments where the experimental physicians also serve as subjects. The degree of risk to be taken should never exceed that determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experiment, and there should be proper preparation. Proper preparation should be made, and adequate facilities should be provided to protect the experimental subjects against even remote possibilities of injury, disability, or death. And the experiment should be conducted only by scientifically qualified persons. The highest degree of skill and care should be required to all stages of the experiment of those who conduct or engage in the experiment. During the course of the experiment, the human subject should be at liberty to bring the experiment to an end if he has reached the physical or mental state where continuation of the experiment seems to hurt him. During the course of the experiment, the scientist in charge must be prepared to terminate the experiment at any stage if he has probable cause to believe in the exercise of good faith, superior skill, and careful judgment required of him, that a continuation of the experiment is likely to result in injury, disability, or death to the experimental subject. So that should always be taken care of, that the patient should not be harmed at any stage of your treatment. And if you find that at any stage your treatment or your experiment is going to harm the patient, so you can stop your study. Then subsequently came the Declaration of Geneva. This was how they are going to practice